Hi, I'm Dr. Christine, and I will be your guide through this presentation of a new tool for medical education. Welcome to TEACH. What is TEACH? TEACH stands for the Technological Educational Application for Clinical Heterogeneity. Confused? Well, let me explain more. Heterogeneity describes a form of self-determined learning. Traditionally, the role of the teacher was to teach, and the role of the student has been to try to learn. Sometimes this is easier said than done. Let's explore what we know about adult learning theory. Adult learners need to do in order to learn. They need to be internally motivated. The learning must be self-directed, problem-oriented, and relevant to the individual. Heterogeneity describes an approach to education that is flexible, designed by the learners and not the teachers. The role of the teacher is to guide and provide resources. Learners are no longer dependent on a teacher, but instead are empowered to learn effectively through a process of learning that they have developed. Teaching these skills will hopefully translate into better immediate outcomes, but also encourage lifelong learning throughout one's career. This is TEACH at its core. What does this have to do with medical education? Well, let's examine how we learn in the clinical environment. The preclinical learning environment is still largely centered around traditional concepts of the classroom. Let's contrast this with learning in the clinical environment, which is based on the idea of see one, do one, teach one. How well does this paradigm work? Do learners feel this is the most efficient or efficacious method for their learning? Or do they feel like they're constantly doing without obtaining mastery and understanding? Let's take a step back. What exactly is the problem? There are increasing expectations on learners to master an exponentially growing body of knowledge. This burden only becomes more onerous as you progress in your clinical career, as the time dedicated to learning and education decreases, replaced by increased clinical responsibilities. Medical education is focused on preclinical classroom learning, with less attention paid to optimizing and standardizing the learner's experience in the clinical setting. In the clinic, there is limited time for traditional study, relying heavily on System 1 fast thinking, which is based on learning from pattern recognition refined through repetitive clinical interactions. This is in contrast to System 2 slow learning, which is based on critical thinking and builds upon prior knowledge for learning. The transition between the preclinical and clinical learning environments presents a particular challenge as trainees transition from the learning paradigm that is largely instructor-driven to one that is learner-driven. This transition happens with very little formal preparation. Some learners navigate it smoothly, developing their own system for picking out the most critical elements from each clinical experience, finding a way to retrieve those learning points for future clinical interactions. However, for less savvy learners, the independence and flexibility of the clinical learning environment can be overwhelming, and they find themselves bouncing between clinical experiences without capturing the most salient learning points. Currently, there does not exist an approach, pedagogy, or tool to help learners smoothly make this transition in the clinical environment, activating both System 1 and System 2 learning. Using adult learning theory, integrating clinical experiences with pre-existing knowledge and promoting self-directed learning, we have created TEACH to try to address this learning need in medical education. TEACH is a novel platform that combines the note-taking capabilities of Evernote, the storage capacity of Dropbox, the community of Facebook, and the assessment capacity of test prep software in an effort to make the clinical learning process more efficient for trainees. However, more than just software, TEACH is a philosophy and methodology which attempts to create a sense of structure in inherently unstructured environments. Designed using principles of adult learning theory, the TEACH application applies principles of heterogeneity, replacing a teacher-centered model of knowledge hoarding with a learner-centered model of knowledge sharing. TEACH allows learners to take a clinical experience and tie that experience to facts and primary research in real time through an interactive, fun, and personalized platform that allows learners to systematically build their own knowledge base and share it with their learning community. Each learner creates their own Teach tool that is optimized and organized to fit their learning needs based on their clinical experiences. Early in your training, this is a tool for learning. As you progress through your education, it becomes a tool for teaching. Teach promotes the idea of social learning to promote learning equity. The idea that knowledge is not owned by institutions, but instead the community, and should be shared freely and available to all. We believe that learning is most efficient when it is done as a community. Social media dominates every aspect of modern life, but why not education? Education is one of the most difficult and complicated human pursuits, but most learners tackle these challenges alone. What Teach hopes to promote is entire communities of learning, where knowledge is decentralized and shared with individuals across disciplines, institutions, and potentially the world. The goal is to make education decentralized to give everyone access and promote equity. Let's explore the Teach platform more closely. Teach is run off the Harvard Scholar platform, which allows you to organize content and information in a variety of different ways that best fits your learning needs. Content can be organized into pages into almost any way imaginable, including tables, tabs, and charts, providing quick snapshots or more detailed overviews, incorporating images, slide decks, videos, flashcards, quick notes, galleries, documents, and PDFs. If you can think of it, you can create it and incorporate it, limited by your own creativity and desire to invest in your own education. Learning through Teach occurs in 3 different stages. Number 1, building, organizing, and contextualizing the information. Number 2, use of the information through repetitive access, optimization, and refining. Number 3, the final step is through sharing and teaching. In the future, we hope to incorporate other learning modalities in Teach, including adaptive learning using machine learning and artificial intelligence, and also enabling portals for educators to post tests, exams, and other learning tools. We hope you will take this journey with us to discover the next evolution of medical education. Thank you from the Teach team.